Garrett showed up at 10 sharp, just like he said he would. He was wearing the navy sport coat he saves for presentations, the one that says I'm polished but approachable. Sienna followed him in, all perfume and posture, holding a vase of white chrysanthemums like they were some kind of peace treaty. "Happy birthday, Mom," Garrett said, kissing my cheek. "You look great." 75 looks graceful on you, Sienna added, smiling tightly. I thanked them and led them into the kitchen. I'd already brewed tea. The table was set. Same as every year, my mother's chipped porcelain, linen napkins folded at the corners. Garrett barely sat before glancing at his watch. "We've got a little birthday surprise for you," he said. "Something relaxing. You've earned it." I looked at them. What kind of surprise? Sienna reached into her handbag and handed me an envelope. Inside was a gift certificate to a spa. I raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's part of it," Garrett said. "We've booked a stay for you. Just 2 weeks. Somewhere quiet. Out near the mountains. You'll love it." There was a strange eagerness in his voice. A rehearsed lightness. I glanced at my suitcase, already packed and standing by the front door. "You packed for me." "We didn't want you to stress," Sienna said, already gathering her purse. "It's your day. Mireille." The ride out of the city was silent. Garrett drove. Sienna scrolled through her phone. I watched familiar streets blur into interstates, then winding roads flanked by pine trees and distant fog. When the SUV slowed in front of a tall iron gate, I saw the sign, Clear Haven Ridge, private living for seniors. My mouth dried. Garrett put the car in park and stepped out. He opened my door like a valet. "Let's get you checked in." I stayed still. He reached in, gently pulled my suitcase from behind the seat, and set it on the sidewalk beside me. Then he smiled. "The professionals will take care of you," he said. Before walking away, the entrance was quiet, too quiet for a facility this size. Not cold, not sterile, but curated. Subtle music played from somewhere, and a vase of fresh eucalyptus stood on the counter. Garrett nudged me forward, but I walked in on my own. A woman in scrubs greeted us with a practiced smile. "You must be Mrs. Calloway. We've been expecting you." Expecting me? Of course they had. "Mr. Cole will be right out," she added, then disappeared down the hall. Garrett checked his watch again. Sienna stood by the window, pretending not to notice the receptionist glancing between us. The silence was thick. I clutched the handle of my suitcase and looked around. The chairs were arranged with intention, angled for conversation. Low arms for easy rise. A muted blue-gray palette, clean but soft, on the far wall. A brass logo hung above a framed mission statement, a single gold ridge enclosed in a circle. The words, "Clear Haven Ridge, dignity," in every chapter. My logo. My words. I felt something shift in my chest. When the door at the end of the hall opened, a tall man stepped out. Trim gray hair, dark-rimmed glasses, clipboard in hand. He looked around the lobby. Then his eyes landed on me. He stopped. Not just paused, he stopped. Recognition didn't bloom. Confusion did. His grip on the clipboard loosened slightly. "Mrs. Calloway?" he asked. Slowly. I nodded. "That's right. I'm Adrian Cole, director here. I wasn't informed you'd be arriving today." I didn't answer. Garrett stepped forward to fill the silence. "Everything was arranged through your intake coordinator. We spoke last week." Mr. Cole gave a small nod, still watching me with something between concern and calculation. "We'll get her settled," he said eventually. "This way. Mrs. Calloway." I followed him down the hallway. My suitcase wheels hummed against the polished floor. I said nothing. I didn't need to, because, while my voice remained still, my memory was already opening old files. The room they assigned me was quiet and bright. with a wide window that faced the pines. The same window size I'd required in every original spec. No blinds, just soft curtains, cream-colored. Weighted at the hem so they'd fall straight no matter how many times they were washed. I sat on the edge of the bed and let the stillness settle in. Clearhaven hadn't existed before Caleb died. After the funeral, I wandered through a dozen facilities, some bleak, some over-medicated, most impersonal. I remembered one place that reeked of bleach and despair. That night, I poured a glass of wine, opened a fresh legal pad, and began writing what I thought dignity should look like in old age. The original name was Havenlight. Too soft. Clearhaven felt stronger, more like a vow. I didn't want it under my name, not publicly. So we created a parent company, Crescendo Properties. I kept my name off the brochures, the buildings, even the board. But every wall color, every ergonomic chair, every handrail height, I chose them. And now, here I was, checked in like a guest, or worse, a burden. I walked to the small desk in the corner, picked up the landline, and dialed the direct number I hadn't used in 2 years. Vivian Crane answered on the second ring. Mireille, she said immediately. Please tell me this is a social call. It's not... A pause. Tell me. I told her everything. Garrett, the drive, the front gate, the director's face. Send me the intake forms as soon as you get a copy, she said. Already typing. And while I'm at it, accounts frozen. Mortgage rescinded. POA revoked. We'll make it clean. Add a note to the Chase Trust. I said, remove his monthly access. A click of a keyboard. Done. Put the Whitmores on a security watch list. If they call pretending to be me, deny. Another click. She paused, her tone sharpening. Mireille, are you sure I've never been more... There was a smile in her voice now. Don't worry, Vivian replied. By morning, he won't be able to buy a sandwich. It wasn't just the nursing home. That moment at the gate, the betrayal so obvious, so complete it didn't come from nowhere. The signs had been there. Small cracks I'd chosen to seal with hope. 3 months earlier, I'd walked into the kitchen while Garrett and Sienna were visiting. I'd gone to retrieve more tea. Just for a moment. They hadn't heard me come back. She left the oven on again. Sienna had whispered, I'm telling you, Garrett, it's getting worse. She's not dangerous. He replied, just scattered. But the electric bill off the charts, and that mix-up with her prescription. That was once. I interrupted from the doorway, pretending I hadn't heard the rest. And I double-checked it later. They smiled, overly bright. We were just saying we should find someone to help more regularly. Sienna said quickly. I brushed it off. Told myself they were worried, that they cared too much. Not too little, but after that day, they watched me more closely. Not with love, but with evaluation. If I forgot where I'd left my keys, Garrett would arch an eyebrow. If I repeated a story, Sienna would trade glances with him like they were counting the minutes until something fell apart. It wasn't until I overheard them again this time, late at night, in the hallway outside my guest room, that the truth settled in. She's not going to last another year alone, Sienna whispered. We can't keep waiting for her to slip. I know, Garrett replied. It's just, she's still sharp. In bursts. It's hard to prove anything. We don't have to prove it. We just have to act like we're protecting her. I lay still in the bed, staring at the ceiling. My son, the boy I'd walked to school in the rain, held through fevers, sat beside during every scraped knee moment, was discussing my decline like I was a liability. I wanted to believe they were tired, stressed, pressured by jobs, by image. I wanted to believe the story that made them less cruel, but even a naive heart eventually breaks. The next morning, Mr. Cole arrived at my door just after breakfast. a small stack of papers in his hands, and an uncertain look on his face. He knocked once and waited. Courteous to the end. "I brought your intake documents," he said. "Standard resident files. We'll need your signature for the health release and payment agreements." I motioned him in. "Thank you. May I review everything first, of course?" He placed the folder on the desk near the window and pulled a chair out for me. I moved slowly, deliberately. He watched, probably imagining frailty. But the truth was, I needed a moment to steady myself. Not from age. From what I was about to do. "Mr. Cole," I said gently, flipping through the first few pages. "Before I sign anything, would you mind showing me the organizational paperwork for this facility? For my own peace of mind?" His forehead creased. "You mean the parent ownership. We don't typically share internal structures. But I suppose there's no harm. It's all filed with the state anyway." I nodded, just curious. He left the room and returned 15 minutes later with another folder. Legal-size documents. Stamped. Clipped. Meticulously organized. I thanked him and waited until he stepped out. I opened it. Articles of incorporation. Board minutes. Corporate structure. A single holding company listed as the primary asset holder, Crescendo Residential Holdings, LLC. Page after page passed beneath my fingers until I reached the shareholder breakdown. It wasn't highlighted. It didn't need to be. Anna Beatrice Calloway, 90% stake. Other stakeholders, remaining 10. Held in trust for operating partners. It had been years since I'd seen it on paper, but there it was, in bold, black print. No aliases, no shell companies, just the name I was born with, the name I chose to keep. I held the page open, reading it over again, as if the ink might have faded while I wasn't looking, but it hadn't. I folded the folder closed and slid it back into the envelope. Later, when Mr. Cole returned, I handed it to him without a word. He nodded, probably assuming I'd simply reviewed it out of boredom. But I wasn't bored. I was remembering, realigning. "Is there anything else you need?" he asked politely. I set the intake forms aside, untouched. Then I met his eyes and said it clearly, softly. "Anna Beatrice Calloway, primary stakeholder, 90%. Vivian didn't waste time." By noon, Garrett's monthly withdrawal notifications had stopped. The automatic transfers he thought would fund his credit card balance simply didn't arrive. His login prompted an error code when he called the bank. They told him the account had been restructured. Sienna tried first with charm. "I'm calling on behalf of my mother-in-law, Murray Calloway," she said, using the same clipped tone she'd once used with baristas who got her order wrong. There must be a glitch. She'd never restrict access. The man on the other end didn't flinch. "Ma'am, we show that Ms. Calloway initiated the hold herself. She removed her name as guarantor this morning. Legally, you have no authority." There was a pause. Then Sienna, clipped no more, raised her voice. "We've been managing her accounts for over a year." "That's no longer the case," he replied calmly. "Please direct all future inquiries through legal counsel." Vivian texted me updates in short bursts. "All done. Mortgage guarantee revoked. Corporate cards canceled. Whitmore inquiry flagged at First Trust. Your son already tried calling. They're scrambling." I sat by the window, watching the light shift across the treetops as she typed. At some point that afternoon, Mr. Cole appeared again with a tray tea and a small plate of lemon cookies. I nodded my thanks. He didn't ask questions, only said, "It's a quiet day around here," and left me to the quiet, but somewhere far off. I imagined the noise. I imagined Garrett pacing the marble floors of their over-renovated kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, voice rising with each disconnected call. I imagined Sienna hissing behind a closed door, Googling elder rights statutes and corporate override clauses, furious that none of them applied, and all of it unfolding from behind glass walls they built themselves. They never thought I would push back, never thought I had the strength or the access to reclaim what I had given so freely. But that's the thing about trust. Once broken, it echoes, and their screams now echo into the void I once filled with trust. They arrived just before noon. I knew they would. Mr. Cole knocked once, then stepped into my room with a careful expression. "Your son and daughter-in-law are here," he said. "They're agitated. I've directed them to the private conference room. Surveillance is active, as you requested." I stood, smoothed my blouse, and followed him down the hallway. When I opened the door, Sienna was already standing, arms folded, face flushed with rage. Garrett sat rigidly at the edge of a chair, his jaw clenched, eyes darting toward the camera in the corner. "This is insane," Sienna snapped. "You've embarrassed us. You've jeopardized our credit, our mortgage, everything." I took a seat across from them, hands folded in my lap. "No," I said evenly. "I've simply withdrawn what was mine." Garrett leaned forward. "You froze my accounts. You revoked the guarantee on our home loan." "I did. You didn't even call." "You didn't either." I said, "Not before you packed my bags and dropped me off like a donation." Sienna scoffed. "We were trying to help. You've been slipping. You forgot conversations. Left lights on. You called me Carla last week. I met her gaze. I have 75 years behind me. Some days I forget a name. That's not decline, it's life." Garrett's voice cracked. "You blindsided us." "No," I said again. I responded. "To your choices. To your plan to erase me from your lives in the name of responsibility?" Sienna laughed without humor. "So, this is what your big revenge," I stood then. Not abruptly. Just with weight. I walked to the table, placed a single sheet in front of them. Vivian's memo listing every action taken, every legal step, every audit trail. "No, this isn't revenge," I said. "This is documentation. This is clarity. This is what happens when someone plays God with another person's life and forgets who paid for the roof over their head." They didn't speak. Garrett looked down. Sienna's mouth twitched like she had more to say, but no safe words left. I gathered the page, folded it once, and slid it into my pocket. "This isn't punishment," I said, voice even. "It's accountability." They didn't move for a long time, just sat there, breathing the same air they once tried to control. I watched Garrett shift in his seat, finally letting his shoulders sag under the weight of something heavier than shame. Sienna, on the other hand, kept her posture stiff like pride could hold her spine straight when nothing else could. "I didn't come here to end your lives," I said quietly, "but I also didn't come to make it easier." Garrett raised his eyes. There was something different in them now. Not defiance, not guilt, something closer to recognition. I spoke to Vivian. I continued. "A new account has been opened. It's in your name, Garrett. It contains a portion of what I would have left. You had none of this happened." He blinked. "You can't touch it yet. Not now. Not next year. In 5 years. If you have held stable employment. And if you've completed a certified therapy program, you'll gain access." He stared at me. "Therapy. Yes. The kind that helps you understand how love is different from control. That dignity is not a threat to anyone but the entitled." Sienna scoffed, grabbed her purse, and stood. "This is humiliating." "No," I said. "This is earned, or it isn't. That's your choice." She left without a word, heels echoing down the corridor like punctuation. Garrett remained seated. "You'd still do that, after everything I'm not doing it for you. I said. I'm doing it so I can live in peace. Knowing I offered a door, he nodded slowly, jaw tight. I don't know what to say. I stood, ready to return to my room. Then don't say anything. At the door, I paused just long enough to look back. Don't thank me. Earn it. 6 months later, I live in a small cottage tucked along the edge of Chesapeake Bay. It has creaky floors and a sunroom that traps warmth like an old memory. The walls are pale blue. The kitchen always smells faintly of rosemary, and the neighbors leave lemons on the porch without asking for anything in return. No one here knows me as the woman whose son tried to disappear her. They know me as Mireille, the one who paints on the weekends and brings shortbread to the book club. There's a widow down the road who swears by bay leaf tea, and a retired jazz musician who plays soft horn on Thursday nights from his back deck. We wave. Sometimes we sit together without speaking. I wake up early now, not because I must, but because I want to. I read poetry. I make French press coffee. I walk barefoot in the sand before the world fully stirs. Garrett hasn't called? I don't wait for him. The account sits untouched. Vivian sends quarterly reports just in case I want to see where the numbers rest. I never ask if he chooses to climb toward it. It's his ladder to build, not mine to offer again. There's a canvas drying in the corner sunset over salt water. Brush strokes thick with quiet. I'm not trying to capture anything perfect, just the truth of light and air and solitude. Some nights, I stand by the window with a glass of water and listen to the tide pull at the shore. Not to grieve, not anymore, but to feel the rhythm of something that doesn't ask for anything in return. This isn't escape. It isn't defiance. Peace is no longer an escape. It's a homecoming. On the morning of my 78th birthday, there was a knock at the front gate. Not loud, just firm enough to be real. I opened the window and saw him standing there. Garrett, thinner, older in the eyes, no suit, just a plain button-down and jeans. In his hand, a small bundle of wildflowers, lavender, clover, and something yellow I didn't recognize. He didn't wave, just waited. I walked out, barefoot on the porch steps. When I opened the gate, he didn't move right away. Happy birthday, Mom, he said quietly, holding out the flowers. I didn't come to fix anything. I just came to show up. I took the bouquet. They smelled like something honest. We sat on the porch. He didn't rush, didn't defend. Just talked about the construction job, the group therapy, the nights he sat with the silence I once lived in. I saw myself in those sessions. He said, and I didn't like the reflection. I listened. I didn't cry. I didn't console. That wasn't mine to do anymore. When he finished, he looked at me like he didn't know if he was allowed to hope. I'm not asking to come back. He said, I just wanted to look you in the eye and say I was wrong. I set the flowers in a glass of water, placed them by the window. Then I turned back to him. My door is open, Garrett. But next time, bring consistency, not flowers.